Welcome back to Whisperverse USA, the channel where secrets are whispered, peace finds you softly, and dreams begin with every breath. Tonight, let go of the world just for a while. Let your body soften, your mind unwind, and your heart feel held. As we settle into the stillness of this moment together, remember, you are safe here. This story is for you. Tonight, we'll take a quiet walk through a sleepy coastal neighborhood, the kind of place where time slows down and every breeze feels like a gentle reminder that peace still exists. You'll feel the magic of sunset along the boardwalk, pass by children laughing in the golden light, and return to a cozy cottage where calm lives in the very walls. But before we begin our story, let's pause. Let's just breathe. Let your mind drift softly and without pressure. There's no right or wrong way to relax here. Just let your thoughts rise and fall like ocean waves. Some memories may appear, and that's okay. Let them visit, then let them float away like seagulls on the wind. The day behind you is over now. Whatever you did, whoever you spoke to, whatever you felt, it's all in the past. You've arrived at the doorway of rest. All you need to do now is surrender. As you breathe deeper, feel the tension begin to melt from your shoulders. Let your chest rise and fall gently. Let your legs go soft. Invite stillness into your fingertips. You're doing beautifully. Now, let's begin our journey. It's late afternoon. The sun still sits high in the sky, but it's softer now, brushing everything in a golden hue. You're staying in a little beachside cottage, nestled in a sleepy neighborhood just a few blocks from the sea. The streets here are lined with flowers and old trees, and the air smells faintly of salt and summer. Inside the kitchen, sunlight spills through the window, dancing on the countertop where a tall glass pitcher glows with chilled, freshly squeezed lemonade. You pick up a long silver spoon and stir it gently. The soft clink of metal against glass echoes like a bell calling you to stillness. You lift the pitcher and pour the lemonade into a tall glass filled with ice. The citrus scent is sharp and clean. When you take a sip, it's like a cool breeze on a hot day, tart, fresh, and deeply satisfying. On the counter is a chilled, seedless watermelon, sliced open to reveal its neon pink flesh. You cut a thick wedge and bite in. The sweet juice floods your mouth, erasing the lemon's sour kiss. Together, the lemonade and the watermelon feel like the very taste of summer, bright, alive, and fleeting. You tuck the pitcher and leftover fruit into the fridge, and when the door closes, a wave of cool, damp air brushes your skin, refreshing you in the best way. Satisfied, you step outside. The porch welcomes you with its shade, the red front door behind you glowing in the last stretch of sunlight. A calico cat lounges nearby, nestled into a stack of colorful shoes and purring lazily. You kneel and gently stroke its fur, soft, warm, and comforting, like a friend who says nothing but makes everything feel okay. You slip on your faded beach sandals and settle for a moment into a red rocking chair, careful not to disturb the sleeping cat. The chair creaks as you rock gently, grounding yourself. Your feet feel the cushion of the sandals, the warmth of the air kissing your skin. With a grateful breath, you rise and step off the porch. A breeze greets you, light and salty, drifting from the ocean. It plays with your hair and whispers against your cheeks. The tall palm tree in your front yard sways gently, its thick green fronds rustling like nature's lullaby. You watch a hawk, perched near the top of the tree, scanning the sky and land below. It looks so calm, so confident, and then with a sudden burst of motion, it spreads its wings and launches into the sky, catching a wind current and rising like a dream taking flight. You cross the street slowly. Some neighborhood kids are just returning from the beach, their arms full of sandy towels and some bleached surfboards. They laugh as they chase one another with a garden hose. Their joy so pure it ripples through the air like music. You smile to yourself. You're in no hurry, no rush. Today feels like it belongs to no one. The kind of day that says, rest, wander, be free. You let your feet guide you west toward the shimmering line where ocean meets sky. As you stroll, the sidewalk becomes shaded by towering pines. Their long arms stretch overhead, forming a natural cathedral. The light that slips through is soft and dappled, like a lullaby sung in gold. Your sandals crunch gently over fallen pine needles. The scent, earthy, sweet, deep, grounds you. You pause to pick up a pine cone. Its ridges are sharp and firm in your hand. You breathe in its woody scent, and suddenly you're in a forest. For a moment, the world expands, stretching beyond this neighborhood into every quiet, wild place you've ever loved. You tuck the pine cone in your pocket, a souvenir from nature herself. Around you, life stirs in its small, sacred ways. A robin hops by, searching for twigs. A blue jay rustles the soil, hungry for worms. A squirrel scampers through the needles, its fluffy tail twitching. A ladybird drifts lazily past, drawn by the sap of a nearby tree. Everything is alive. Everything is exactly as it should be. You follow the path until the sidewalk ends and the sounds begin to change. The hush of trees gives way to the rhythm of the ocean boardwalk. The smell of pine fades into the scent of sunscreen and sea salt. The quiet is replaced by life, human life, bustling and vibrant. Bicycles hum past you, their wicker baskets overflowing with towels and snacks. People jog by, earbuds in, caps pulled low, lost in their own rhythm. Children skip ahead of their parents, chattering with excitement. The boardwalk pulses with warmth and noise and color. But you are still in no rush. You walk slowly, savoring it all, the breeze, the laughter, the nearness of the sea. The sun hangs low now, beginning its descent. It stretches golden light across the boardwalk and catches the edges of every smile, every splash of water, every glint of hair. It's strange and beautiful how the ocean draws people in, no matter their age or story. Here, everyone seems softer, more open. Maybe it's the way the sea reminds us that we're all made of water, of time, of something greater than ourselves. And so you walk, and the world moves gently with you. The boardwalk unfolds before you like a painting in motion, vibrant and full of life. The soft laughter of strangers, the sound of beach sandals slapping the wood, and the scent of salt and coconut sunscreen fill the air like a living lullaby. To your left, some lovers stretch out on brightly colored cotton towels, their skin glowing under the warm embrace of the afternoon sun. Some chat lazily, books half open on their chests. Others drift into gentle sleep, lulled by the rhythm of the waves. Out in the ocean, silhouettes dance with the surf, swimmers, and surfers gliding across the shimmering water. Fearless and free, frisbees soar across the sand like flying smiles. Balls bounce and thud gently as children chase them barefoot. Overhead, kites float like painted birds, blues and oranges and bright yellows fluttering against the sky. The air is full of joyful energy, like a heartbeat you can see. Your gaze lands on a group of kids engaged in a spirited game of beach volleyball. Their feet kick up soft puffs of sand, their shouts playful and bright. Just as you pause to watch, a tiny girl leaps and spikes the ball, her face lit with pride and accomplishment. You find yourself cheering quietly. Noticing your attention, one of the older kids calls out. They'd love to have you join their team. Their voices are warm, their invitation genuine. For a brief moment, You almost say yes, but you smile and gently decline, waving back and thanking them. As you walk away, you think about how simple kindness, even from strangers, can turn an ordinary day into something unforgettable. The boardwalk widens now, making space for a row of pop-up tents flapping gently in the sea breeze. Local artists have gathered here, filling each space with beauty, creativity, and stories told through their craft. You wander slowly between the tents, drawn in by soft music and friendly chatter. Inside one, sunlight dances off shelves of hand-thrown pottery. Glazed mugs and bowls gleam like river stones, smooth and cool to the touch. You run your fingers across a pair of deep forest green mugs and imagine sipping warm tea by candlelight. Nearby, a set of rustic brown dipping bowls catches your eye, perfect for sauces, olives, or simply resting in someone's kitchen, full of character and quiet charm. They feel like gifts, not flashy, but thoughtful, the kind of item that says, I saw this, and I thought of you. In the next tent, baskets hang from ropes like ornaments in a breeze. They're hand-woven from bamboo, jute, and hemp, each dyed, naturally using spices, turmeric yellow, paprika red, cinnamon brown, earthy, warm, familiar. One bright yellow bamboo basket draws your attention. You can picture it on someone's hallway table, gathering mail and keys and stories from every day. The market is busy now, with clusters of people laughing and chatting as they admire handmade jewelry, watercolors, and carved driftwood. You smile softly and drift onward, letting your steps guide you deeper into the golden hour. Rolling your shoulders back, you take a long breath and feel the strength in your body. It feels good to move. It feels good to be here, exactly where you are. Mind open, heart calm, soul stretched out like sun-warmed linen. Ahead, the boardwalk narrows once more and transforms into something quieter, more profound. An old pier extends into the water, reaching out like an arm toward the horizon. Its sun-bleached planks creak under each footstep. Thick wooden pylons disappear into the sea below, bracing themselves against the crashing surf. Waves slam and foam around the base, but the pier stands firm, steady, ageless, weathered and wise. To either side of the pier sit little white cottages, perched gently like storybook homes on stilts. They're part of a seaside bed and breakfast, each with a square back deck and an oval front porch. You imagine staying here, waking to the sounds of gulls and going to sleep with the lull of the tide. From this distance, you can see they've been lovingly restored. Fresh white paint glows in the golden sun. Window boxes overflow with scarlet begonias and fragrant lavender. Small nautical touches, anchors, tiny boats. Hand-painted pelicans welcome guests with charm and warmth. Each one whispers, come rest, come dream, come home. You make your way to the far edge of the pier, where a new stainless steel railing gleams, polished by wind and time. Fishing poles line the barrier, secured with clips and straps. Their lines stretch out over the water, floating in rhythm with the tide. Silver buckets nearby glint with the shimmer of fresh-caught fish. Today was a good day. An elderly man sits on a weathered bench, his cap pulled low, and a half-smile hidden in his beard. A bit of seaweed has tangled in his line, but he doesn't seem to mind. He lifts the lure with care and slowly pulls the green mess free, chuckling to himself as he mutters, next time, maybe the fish will be kinder. You smile, quietly agreeing. There's something about him, his calm, his patience, that stays with you, here, standing above the water. Surrounded by salt and breeze and the hush of waves, you feel something inside you settle. The pier doesn't ask questions. It doesn't judge or hurry. It just holds you, quietly. You glance down through the cracks in the wooden boards. Beneath you, the ocean sways, deep, blue, eternal. You watch the light ripple across its surface and let yourself fall into its rhythm. You feel small here, in the best way. You feel part of something bigger. You take a deep breath and let it out, slowly imagining it joining the wind as it dances across the water. Cool and salty, a spray of ocean mist touches your face and drips off your skin. Immersed in your surroundings, you are filled with a sense of peace and harmony in a calm daze. You rejoin the boardwalk on autopilot. Walking comes so naturally, and it's nice to zone out for a while. Your thoughts are quiet and your body is relaxed effortlessly. Putting one foot in front of the other keeps you grounded and centered, helping you to stay in the present moment. You're not sure what the time is, but it doesn't really make a difference from the looks of the sun hanging low in the sky. It's getting late. Music before you call it a day and head on home. You decide to watch the sunset. You know, the perfect place. It seems that the other people are also ready for the spectacle. They're coming and going between the sand and the boardwalk, with the sky clear and the air hot and dry. The conditions are just right for a green flash. When the warm yellow sun melts into the cool blue sea, and emerald flash lights up the horizon. Everyone here is anticipating a magnificent green flash. Very soon, walking comfortably, you soon reach a famous surf break where sunsets are exquisite. You take a seat on the concrete wall of the boardwalk and enjoy the sight of people surfing, blown out by the wind. The waves are somewhat choppy, but still rideable. Having fun in the swell, surfers coast in and out with the movement of the water. The sun, now a glowing ball of golden yellow, begins to dip into the deep blue sea. Staring at the horizon, you witness a radiant flash of green. Just seconds before the sun vanishes, feeling content and calm, you are ready to make the trek home. On the way, you reflect that the green flash is definitely a highlight of your summer at the beach cottage. This inspirational sunset resonates with you on so many levels. There are no words to describe the tremendous gratitude you are feeling. Music, your heartfelt reaction to the vivid colors in the sky, is something that will stay with you forever. Music, you leave the boardwalk and cross the dining district of the Ocean Boulevard. From corner to corner, eateries are buzzing. After watching the sunset, everyone heads here for dinner. Happy people linger in outdoor cafes and mingle at the bars. Others queue up in front of pizza restaurants and taco shops to order food on the go. An intoxicating smell of fruity summer treats permeates the air. The scent intensifies as you approach an ice cream parlor. An eager employee hands out free samples of their seasonal specialties. There's chunky mango sorbet, a blueberry custard ice cream, and a banana foster frozen yogurt. Why not try each one? You think they're free after all. The first flavor to sample is the banana foster. You taste subtle hints of spice blended with banana in a vanilla yogurt. Next, you try the chunky mango, tangy citrus bits covered in slushy mango swirl in your mouth. Music. Finally, you eat the blueberry custard. The tart blueberries are mellowed out by the sweet custard. This smooth ice cream is definitely your favorite of the three. Once you've finished, you cut through the parking lot of the ice cream parlor to a quiet residential area. Dusk blankets the neighborhood and calms. Your mood. Colors appear blissfully muted in the low-lit sky. The fading light wraps a golden halo around objects and softens the edges. This time of day is ephemeral and fleeting, so you engage thoughtfully with the natural world around you. The hot, dry wind has now disappeared, and the air is still singing. Birds have settled in the trees, while crickets trap near the sidewalk. In lush gardens, the grass appears parched from the heat of the day, while blooming flowers close their petals for the night. As it gets darker, the last faint shadows disappear. Being present in the moment, you notice the small things. A little snail moves slowly across the gritty pavement. It must take this tiny creature months just to move a mile. Music. How curious, you think to carry your house on your back. The little snail seems vulnerable on the sidewalk, so once it hides in its shell, you gently pick it up. Round and grayish brown, The shell rests safely in the palm of your hand. You find a nice manicured lawn to place the little snail. The snail is now sheltered from foot traffic on the sidewalk. The walk home is short and sweet all around you. Dusk magnifies the beauty of the outdoors. Reflecting on the day, you feel intense satisfaction and gratitude. Music, a simple walk, has cleared your mind, restored your body, and reset your attitude. Music. The streetlights in the neighborhood automatically turn on after dusk. The red front door of the beach cottage and the old palm tree in the front yard are illuminated in the soft glow of a streetlight nearby. A black cat darts across the lit-up street and into the dark of the night. After stepping onto the front porch of the cottage, you kick off your sandals and sink into the red rocking chair. As you sit here, you smile, noticing the lingering taste of the blueberry custard ice cream in your mouth. Sighing with complete contentment, you let the rocking chair cradle your tired body. As you swing back and forth, your legs relax and your arms rest in a comfortable position. Music. You reach into your pocket to find the pine cone that you picked up earlier that day. Music. Inhaling the woody scent is like being in a forest. Music. The smell takes you back to the huge trees bordering the beach and the crackling pine needles underneath your feet. With these visions, your eyelids grow heavy. Each breath allows you to let go of the day and embrace the night. You focus on your breathing and on relaxing your body. Music. You are now feeling so sleepy you can no longer stay awake. After a tired yawn, you give in and slip into a peaceful slumber.